like John Wayne.
I couldn't just stand there and watch him shoot those people. There was an incident near a ferry port on the English Channel. The Brits were moving Sean Miller from Albany Prison to the Isle of Wight. He escaped.
There's never been a terrorist attack on American soil, Jack. These men are professionals. Personal revenge rarely plays into it.
But I killed his brother.
Stick your nose in where I didn't belong. And now you've killed my baby brother.
Operator, emergency breakthrough. What about my daughter?
Let's sit down for a moment.
No, talk to me.
He's never gonna let us go, is he? I don't care what you have to do. You just get him.
So this is a radically different movie from what The Hunt for Red October was, for obvious reasons, of course. Alec Baldwin's not playing Jack Ryan in this one, and Gates McFadden's not in this one. In fact, the only person that comes back from the previous film was James Earl Jones, who was in the last movie as Admiral James Greer, and he comes back into this movie in that same character, and he would also play the same role again in the next film, Clear and Present Danger. This movie also has had a kind of a mixed reception when it came out, mostly because people had some problems with the controversies because of the changes to the book by Tom Clancy. In fact, Tom Clancy himself distanced himself from the film so much that he didn't like the film at the time it came out. And I doubt he's come back around on it. But really, when I look back at this movie, this was my introduction to the Jack Ryan series. The Hunt for Red October I saw later on, and then I saw this. This was the first movie I ever saw from this series. And I really loved it. I mean, I love this movie. I mean, I haven't read the book that this is based off on, so yeah, there's a good chance that he could be right. This is probably very different from the book, but for what they have here, it's actually a really good movie that keeps you invested in what's going to happen. Like, you get so caught up in the mystery and the action and the tension of this film is so strong here. The cast overall is great. I think Harrison Ford really does fit the role of Jack Ryan here very well, even though he's obviously a lot older than what Alec Baldwin was when he played him in The Hunt for Red October. Anne Archer playing his wife is also a very good character in here. Thora Birch, who plays the daughter of Jack Ryan in this, and actually was in a couple of other things around this time as she was slowly but surely beginning her career. You also have Sean Bean playing the bad guy, and come on, Sean Bean playing the bad guy, usually he's very good in it, and more than likely he's going to die in it because it's Sean Bean, and he usually dies in pretty much every movie he's in. You also have Patrick Bergin, Samuel L. Jackson's in this, Richard Harris. For me, this is a great movie, and I really love the action in this movie. I mean, the ending of this film alone, the big climax taking place during the storm, and they're out in the water, and that's my favorite thing coming out of that movie. Like, that's the thing that really sticks with you after as many years that I've seen this movie. What am I even saying right now? Let me rephrase that again. Yeah, I could restart again, but you know what? Screw it. We're already almost done with what I have to say about it. But like I said, the climax that takes place during the storm and they're out in the ocean, it's a really cool action sequence that really sticks with me after so many years, and I wouldn't be surprised if The Equalizer 2 took a lot of inspiration for that climax, because that one also takes place at the end, is out near the ocean during a thunderstorm, and I certainly like this one a lot better than that one, even though I did really like The Equalizer 2, but that's for another time. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie a whole lot. I think it's a really good action thriller. It works mostly because of of Harrison Ford in this and the rest of the cast. The action is great. It's just a ton of fun, and I mean, overall, I really do like most of the Jack Ryan movies. The only one I really don't like is The Sum of All Fears with Ben Affleck. I really thought that was a major misfire on so many levels, but we'll delve more into that one when we get to 2002, because that's when that one came out. But Patriot Games is amazing. I really enjoy this movie. It's probably one of my favorite movies that came out that particular summer. So that's Patriot Games. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie that we have, the last movie that we have actually this week. Kid and Play, starring in Class Act, their follow-up to House Party.
was an excellent student with a bright future.
Oh yeah, well I was the dopest brother on the block. Cell block 9. That was before I met you. Man, all we did was a little switch, a little hip-hop flip-flop.
Principal Kratz, there's been a terrible mistake. Ow! What do you want from me?
You be you for me. You ace all my classes this semester, and I'll let you live.
Since I'm doing something for you, you gotta help me pass phys ed.
No, I'm sorry.
This movie's got everything. Comedy.
Give me some ducats, some loot, some cash, some dough, some cat, some grin.
Are you crazy?
Of course I'm crazy. And hotties.
Let's make bacon.
It's got action and suspense.
And skins. I thought you were going to play with my frog.
Your frog ain't jumping in my direction. There's a new tadpole in town.
And it's got music and dancing. And it's got babes.
Well, finally something we both agree upon. It's kid as play. 50% of it is attitude and style. And play is kid. You're gonna beat Blade Brown. You gotta know where Blade Brown comes from.
Thought you crawled out from under a rock.
Yo, I taught you how to be fly.
You never taught me how to fly.
And they're a class act. Come on, man, that ain't half of what went down. How about giving a brother some credit?
Yeah, you heard him. Give him some credit.
Oh, very funny. Talk about bringing a brother down.
So essentially, this is basically an urban retelling of The Prince and the Pauper, only this time it's Kid and Play as the Prince and the Pauper, except Kid and Play really do not look like each other. I mean, they do not look like the same person, and that's kind of where I have the biggest problem with this particular movie. It's just that it never really makes any sense because they don't really they really do not look alike, and for this story to work, you really need to have either a dual performance by one of the actors, or do something different with it, like make it animated or something to make it even look like that. But that's one of the reasons why I don't think this works very well. Another reason it doesn't really work as well is something like the original House Party. It just doesn't really it just doesn't have that same vibe that the House Party movies, the first two House Party films had. It just feels like a movie that these two are doing just to get their name out, just to expand their role and all that kind of stuff. But it's pretty lazy. It's a lazy movie that really... I'm not going to blame it on Kid and Play because they're doing the best they can, and they do still have that good comic timing, but just the material that's given to them is not really all that interesting or all that funny. And there's an overall really good cast of this movie that's being kind of wasted here. You got Kid and Play, you got Karen Parsons, you've got Dougie Doug, Loretta Devine, Meshack Taylor, Pauly Shore's in here, Ray Burke from the Naked Gun movies. You got cameos by Rhea Perlman and Sam McMurray from Christmas Vacation and the Tracy Ullman Show. A good cast here, but they're just really not given a whole lot of material to work with to make it funny. And that's really kind of the missing piece of this movie that's missing from like House Party and House Party 2. Like even House Party 2, which is nowhere near as good as the first House Party, still had some funny moments to it. This really doesn't feel like a movie that they really went into it wanting to make the best movie. I think they just wanted to make this to keep cashing in on the success of Kid and Play and what they did with House Party and House Party 2. And at least to me, it didn't work. I know it has a following with so many other people, but at least to me, it didn't work well for me at all. I think it's a real missed opportunity. It's a movie that didn't really do a whole lot for me, comedy-wise. It's a very disappointing film, considering that Kid and Play do still have some good comedic timing together, and they work off each other so well. I just wish the script was a whole lot better, and I think they really should have gone more all in on the concept of the Prince and the Pauper thing. It's a good idea, but just a missed opportunity overall. That's how I feel about Class Act.
This is the house that Davis built. This is the stranger who's moving into the house that Davis built.
I'm Gwen, his wife.
Mine's George. I'm his father.
This is Davis, who's just discovered the stranger living in his house.
What are you doing here?
What am I doing? What are you doing here?
You're in a lot of trouble.
I am?
How the hell come I never knew you were married?
Hi, honey.
Oh, my God.
Oh, he said, oh, what a great little town this was, and what a fabulous house that he built, and the truth is,
You told him you were my wife?
I guess he was under the impression that I was
Insane?
To marry a woman whose face you've never seen until your wedding day at the hospital when the doctor removes the gauze?
What is happening?
Steve Martin
You can't stay here.
Why not?
is
You're a con artist!
Newton Davis.
Excuse me.
We have this amazing communication, you know, it's like,
When?
Goldie Hawn
I'm going.
Where did all this furniture come from?
is not
Well, I just told him to go ahead and put it on our account.
Mrs. Davis.
Would you mind not going around the house dressed like that? You know, you happen to look very pert.
I want this marriage to work.
What marriage?
She is the house sitter.
I'd like for you to call me Dad.
Honey, are you okay?
House sitter.
Strange thing is that 30 years from now, this would probably be a situation you would see in a Karen video where somebody just walks into your house and claims that it's theirs, and they have no proof that it's theirs, and they just feel like they're entitled to have it. It's pretty much that same concept here. And but as far as this movie goes, I mean, considering that the talent that they have out here, I mean, you have Frank Oz, who had just the year before directed What About Bob, which is a fantastic comedy. You've got Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn, two very funny people who have great chemistry with most of the people they work with. I mean, this should be a project that should work, but when you watch the movie, it really doesn't, because really, one side is definitely on the right side. Steve Martin's basically the man who's not the guy shouldn't even be in the situation. And Goldie Hawn's just basically a con artist who's just taken over this Steve Martin's house for no reason, and has just created the story about who he actually is, about who she actually is, and when it's not the case whatsoever. And that's really the whole joke of the movie, is that Goldie Hawn's the person that's doing whatever she wants, and Steve Martin's just the straight man trying to be like, how did he get into this situation? And if the script was better written, maybe this could work, but really, when you watch the movie, it pretty much goes as you would think it would go. They're going to end up falling in love with each other in real life, and they're going to have the third act breakup. They're going to have the situation where they have to get back together at the end. It's really nothing original or creative whatsoever. I mean, to their credit, Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn are doing their best with the material given to them, and they do have that good chemistry that they work off each other so well. In terms of it's actually the first of two movies that they would be paired up together, and neither one of them really were that good. There was this one, and then there was the Out of Towners, which would come out at the end of the decade. But we'll eventually get to that one. But I mean, at least this one's the better of the two, but it's not really saying all that much. It's a movie that I think could have been a whole lot better if the script wasn't too formulaic, it wasn't too predictable, and there was actually a balance between these two people. Even though they do work off each other very well, the balance really isn't there, because Steve Martin's clearly in the right here, and Goldie Hawn's clearly in the wrong. I mean, any situation you look at here, she's creating these lies, and it's just basically a go with it. In a way, it's kind of like Just Go With It, that movie with Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston that came out a few years ago, where Adam Sandler's basically just lying and has to create this fake relationship. That's what it's kind of like here. I mean, but again, I would probably take this movie over that movie, but yeah, overall, this movie really wasn't worth it. I mean, it's a very disappointing movie. Martin and Hawn are trying their best here, but it just doesn't work in the end for me. It's a movie that I saw once. I have no real intention of ever seeing it again, unfortunately. So that's House Sitter. Let's go ahead and move on to the last movie that we have here, a sequel that I know everybody's been waiting for. I mean, why wouldn't you want to see the latest adventures of Louis Gossett Jr. in a series that is the only one he could really get after winning an Academy Award for An Officer and a Gentleman? That is, of course, Ace's Iron Eagle 3. And you know I'm completely lying about this, but let's talk about Ace's Iron Eagle 3.
Morales just crashed in the Gulf. He's dead, Chappie.
People die in the drug war all the time, Chappie.
Final shipment should be worth another 50 million.
My whole village and family's in danger.
We divide into pairs. Strike and wingman recover each other's ass.
It's showtime, so let's get busy.
Their mission, unofficial.
The guns are concealed here and here.
their tactics. Unconventional.
I have these fighters back in this hangar by Sunday morning.
Yeah, how many pieces?
Their courage.
If there are any other options, I'd take them.
Unbelievable.
The party's over.
Louis Gossett Jr. And introducing Rachel McClish.
Mayday! Hang on.
Hey. Aces. The height of adventure.
Yes, Rachel McClish, star of Aces, Iron Eagle 3 and Ravenhawk, and even then that was a TV movie, but yeah, she never really went anywhere after this, and this series never really went anywhere even after the first movie. It's just like, really, they still made more than one Iron Eagle sequel. Apparently they made a couple of them, because there's another one that came out in '95, but at least they were smart enough to say, send us off the video, because clearly nobody's going to see these movies, and you can kind of tell why. I mean, on the one hand, it's got John Glenn, who had directed 5 James Bond movies, and he makes this movie, and it's just like, what happened? Like, you made 5 James Bond movies, and even the worst James Bond movies were actually it still had more value than this movie did. And Louis Gossett Jr., why do you keep doing this to yourself, man? You're an Academy Award winner, and you keep saying yes to these movies for no reason whatsoever. It's a mess. It's a movie that doesn't work whatsoever. They honestly should have stopped after the first Iron Eagle. I mean, really, what has the series done after the first Iron Eagle movie that contributes anything to society? Nothing, really. So, there you go. Quick one there. That's Aces, Iron Eagle 3.
I'm a woman.
Sorry. Hi.
Hi.
Look, I'm sorry about yesterday. Had a big deal come up.
Burn, baby! It's okay. I had to go home and feed my cat. Meow. To talk. You see, you and I have something in common. Batman. To destroy Batman, we must first turn him into what he hates the most. Namely, us.
The Flamer. Maybe this isn't a good time to mention this, but my license has expired. The time has come to punish all of
What do you want?
You don't really think you'll win, do you?
So yeah, like I said, this was the most anticipated movie of 1992. It was supposed to be the big benchmark of the summer movie season. It was supposed to be another huge hit, just like the first Batman movie was. The end result was not quite what they had in mind. While it's not a complete mess overall, the movie is a massive disappointment compared to the far superior first film. I mean, you have a pretty good scriptwriter in here with Daniel Waters, who had just come off of writing Heathers, one of the best dark comedies ever, and you still had Keaton in the role, and he was still great in there. Really, what I think the movie comes down to, it's a couple of things. One is the villains. One, Danny DeVito, which, I mean, he was perfectly cast as the Penguin, but the way he acts and the way he's represented here, that's not the Penguin. I mean, it really isn't. The Penguin is not supposed to be this hideous freak of nature. He's supposed to be a gentleman of crime, a fancy guy who appreciates birds and high-tech umbrellas. And as with many of the other Batman movies, I think the animated series that came out just a few months later stays closer to what the Penguin really is. I mean, with a charismatic voiced by Paul Williams, too, I mean, that's a better representation of the Penguin than it is in this movie. I mean, this is why Burton should have really read up on these characters before making the film, because this was not the Penguin by any means. But, I mean, in terms of casting, I mean, I don't know who else you would have cast besides Danny DeVito as the Penguin. I just wish they would have fixed the character up better. But, two, you can tell when a movie series is not trying anymore, when they try to add more than one villain, and they give no real reason to be in the film whatsoever. I think this film really is the perfect example of that, where you have this trend beginning with, because you not only have the Penguin and Catwoman, but you also have Christopher Walken as Max Scheck, whose main plan is to build a power plant that will drain Gotham's power supply. So, we have three villains with three stories going on, and unless you have the right writers to make it all come together well, the film just becomes overcrowded, and that's exactly what happens here. It kind of reminds me of Spider-Man 3. It kind of reminds me of Spider-Man 3, really. And, like, the way they packed all those villains in there, it's just like, you didn't really need to do that. But really, Spider-Man 3 was not Sam Raimi's fault. That was mostly Avi Arad, the producer of that, and the end result spoke for itself. And, actually, a better example probably would be The Amazing Spider-Man 2, because they pretty much did the same thing all over again, except even worse than Spider-Man 3. Another reason I don't think the movie works is Catwoman, and I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer's perfectly cast as Catwoman, even if Burton doesn't follow the story from the comics, but, you know, when Pfeiffer becomes Catwoman, she actually does a really good job capturing the role, up until the end, where she just decides to go over the top for no reason whatsoever. I mean, they really ruined something great with that performance when they just tell her just go over the top with it, and it really makes no sense to the context of the story, which that's another big problem with the movie, is that the story goes all over the place, and there's never a point where it slows down or anything. Things just keep happening over and over. Like, you don't really know what the Penguin's full plan is, because at first it's like, I want to find my parents. Now I want to run from mayor. Oh, I can't do that anymore because Batman caught me up. It's got me out. Now I want to kill all the kids of Gotham City. Oh, Batman stopped me there. Okay, now I'm going to have all these penguins march in Gotham and take the kids themselves. It's just like, nope, Batman stopped you there. And it's just like, what's the point of having him having the story going on if you don't have a central idea of what you want your main characters to do? Like, there are so many plot points and random twists and turns that happen here and serve no purpose whatsoever. And some of them actually create continuity issues and plot holes. And one of the other reasons why this movie doesn't work is that it's unpleasant and nasty to watch at times. I mean, let me put it this way. After watching this film, McDonald's had every right to pull all of its Batman Returns toy lines that they had because of some of the nasty stuff they pull in this. And it's just so mean-spirited and unnecessary. I mean, to the movie's credit, though, it's not a complete mess, and I've seen much worse from the Batman movies, but there are things in here that are actually great. Again, the set pieces are very nice. I like the visuals. I like the way they mix practical and CG effects here. I mean, Michael Keaton, once again, is badass as Batman, and I do like Danny DeVito's performance and his memorable lines in here, and I do like Michelle Pfeiffer in here. I mean, and even Christopher Walken, I thought liked his over-the-top performance, because it's a typical Christopher Walken performance that he has in this. But overall, yeah, Batman Returns really is one of those movies where it just doesn't have that same spark that the first movie did. It kind of falls into sequelitis territory. I still kind of enjoy it, but looking back on it, it has a lot of problems from its confusing story, too many villains, and just how much shock value Burton tries to throw in here just by throwing these really grotesque scenes that make you wonder what kind of drugs he was taking when he was making this film. If it was more like the first film, it would have been great, but for what it is, it's a big disappointment compared to the first film, and it led Warner Brothers to hand off the directing helm toy belt, the directing helm off to another director for a much safer Batman movie, which would come in 3 years from now, and we will get to Batman Forever when we get to that one. As far as Batman Returns goes, I still kind of enjoy it, but it could have been a whole lot better if the script, if they fixed a lot of the problems with the script, they didn't go completely insane with it, and the villains acted like the villains, and they actually had a real purpose here. But as it is, it's just okay for what it is. So, but definitely a major step down from the first Batman movie. So that's my full thoughts on Batman Returns.
Watch a man come into my own home, attack my own wife, and I can't do anything about it? Never gonna be in that position again.
Oh, Michael, hey, you remember Officer Davis?
Oh yeah, how you doing? I didn't recognize you out of uniform. Hey, I'm gonna make sure that your block's patrolled all night long. Would you like to go get a cup of coffee? You're safe with me. I'm a cop, remember? What's going on?
What the hell are you talking about?
You and Pete. He wants you. He thinks you want him? We're staying away from this guy. You got it. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. How do I get a cop off my back? Here it is, 5,000. You walk away and don't mess with my bride, Mikey. Call whatever you want, Pete. I don't know what's going on with Michael. He's losing it. This guy's decorated office. I don't care how many medals he has. I want this taken care of. He's making up these stories.
So maybe you're overreacting a little bit?
He threatened to kill me last night. How do you suggest I react to that? These wild accusations about me? Mr. Carr, is there something personal in this? I told you he was dangerous. What's it gonna take? Me in a body bag? Well, anything I seem to do makes it worse. I got a cop who wants my wife. They hear him on the door. Do it! She's all alone, Mikey. But not for long.
So it's literally Pacific Heights. I mean, pretty much it's Pacific Heights, except replace Matthew Modine, Melanie Griffith, and Michael Keaton with Kurt Russell, Madeline Stowe, and Ray Liotta. And you pretty much got the same movie here, except this time Ray Liotta wants to fuck Kurt Russell's wife, pretty much. And I mean, I'll give this movie credit though. It's not bad. It's actually a much more enjoyable movie, I would say, than Pacific Heights is, because Pacific Heights essentially had a one-note premise to it that really didn't have a whole lot of surprises to it. But in this movie's case, this movie actually does kind of work. I mean, the more I think about it, I think the movie works a lot better because you kind of, it's funny because Ray Liotta's clearly the bad guy here, but in a way, his methods of trying to get Madeline Stowe's attention actually are more reasonable than something like, say, what Michael Keaton was doing in Pacific Heights, except that, of course, in that movie, he wasn't trying to screw around with Matthew Modine's wife, he was trying to kill him. But, I mean, in here, it's actually a legitimately terrifying movie. I mean, Ray Liotta really puts his all into this, playing this kind of cop that kind of abuses his power and harasses this couple, mainly Kurt Russell. And Russell and Stowe really work off each other very well here. They really are a lot of the performances in here are very good. This is a good script written by Lewis Colick and Ken Friedman. Jonathan Kaplan directed this movie. And Ray Liotta got an MTV Movie Award for Best Villain, which was back when, the MTV Movie Awards actually meant something. And, so yeah, I would legitimately say that this is actually a pretty decent movie. More than I would have thought it was, because when I saw the trailer for this, I just thought, well, it's Pacific Heights all over again. But unlike Pacific Heights, this is actually written better. These characters are more believable. The direction is much better. The music is much better. It's just an overall much better film than Pacific Heights is. If you haven't seen Unlawful Entry, I'd say definitely check it out. You might actually be surprised more with how much you enjoyed it. Kind of like what happened with me. So that's the only new release that came out this weekend. But there was also a classic movie re-released this weekend, and that was Disney's classic film, Pinocchio.
50 years ago, Walt Disney created a motion picture masterpiece that would become one of the greatest films of all time. and brought to life a little hero who charmed audiences all over the world.
Good piece of work, too.
This summer, that timeless classic returns to theaters. It's Walt Disney's one and only Pinocchio. Pinocchio, the story of the wooden puppet who wanted to become a real boy.
I'm going to school.
That's the stuff, Pinocchio.
And set off on a fantastic adventure with a very special friend.
Cricket.
Jiminy Cricket.
I'm little baby. The night is light for me.
Pinocchio.
What happened?
It's thrilled generations of audiences with its spectacular animation, its memorable moments, and its unforgettable music. It's the most breathtaking movie of the summer.
You are a real boy.
And you're invited to share the magic with your family.
I can swear.
It's Walt Disney's classic, Pinocchio, for anyone who's ever wished upon a star.
It's fitting because just recently we had Robert Zemeckis' remake, which honestly is one of the worst movies of the year, one of the worst Disney live-action remakes I've ever seen. And I've talked about it before. I'll go ahead and put a link to the Talking About the Movies episode where I talked about that one. But I hated it because it ruined the timeless factor. Like, when you watch the animated Pinocchio, you could still tell that this is a timeless story. This could happen at any point in time, and you never could get the sense of a modernization or anything like what the remake did. I mean, this movie still holds up almost 80 years later, and it's still a classic movie on so many levels. There's really not much more I can bring to it that hasn't already been said. The music is classic. I mean, When You Wish Upon a Star is just one of the great Disney songs. The animation still holds up. The storytelling is very well done. It's not afraid to take chances and be legitimately scary for kids. Like, these scenes still freak me out almost over 30 years after I've seen this movie for the first time. These scenes still hold up. I mean, the Coachman's smile, when he smiles, is still one of the most terrifying things ever to me. I mean, the smiles in the the smiles that are in the movie Smile have nothing compared to the Coachman's smile in Pinocchio. This evil smile that just, every time I see it, I get creeped out by it. It still holds up after so many years. That, like, it's a movie that still holds up on so many levels. It's a classic film, beautiful animation, great storytelling, great characters, great music. What more do I even need to say about it? It's Pinocchio. It's one of the great Disney classics for a reason, and no terrible remake can ever take away the enjoyment factor of the original film. It's just such a great movie that will have much longer lasting power than any remake that comes after it. So, there you go. That's Pinocchio.